Hi, welcome to another one of our Careers Week interviews with alumni from St. George's. Today we've got Shriya Prabhakar, who's come here to talk to us about her interesting career. I think this is going to be a useful insight for those of you studying biomedical science who might be looking beyond going into medicine or trying to broaden out your ideas and horizons as far as your next steps are concerned. Shriya graduated from St. George's in 2015, and you're going to tell us, aren't you, a little bit about your current role, first of all. So thank you, first of all, for joining us today. We really appreciate you coming back to talk to the students and give inspiration at a particularly difficult time as well. And I think trying to open up ideas and to really help students think about what's right for them is going to be very important at this time, so they can really make a success of their lives. But do you want to start off, Shriya, by telling us a little bit about your role, put us out of our suspense and tell us what your role is and who you're currently working for?
Yeah, sure, Emma. Thank you so much. And thanks for having me. Really looking forward to this chat and really good to be back as well at George's virtually. So my current role, I work for a management consultancy based in London called Chaucer. They are a mid-sized management consultancy. I'm a senior management consultant with them. Since graduating from St. George's in 2015, I went on to do finance. So immediately started working actually for a financial services company, July 2015, and worked with them for about 4.5 years. Worked my way up there and ended up as a project manager there, and then eventually decided to go into project management for a consultancy. So picked Chaucer because they consult across a wide range of industries. So after getting quite a bit of finance experience, I was keen to get experience, especially within the public sector. Chaucer have clients within the kind of public sector, pharmaceuticals, energy, telecoms, all sorts. So my role currently is, I think it's a management consultant sounds a bit vague and varied, and it's probably a bit of a confusing title, but I guess the role kind of varies depending on the projects that we're on. Essentially, our job as a consultant is to work with the companies that hire us, our clients, and make their daily lives in terms of their management needs a bit easier. So those clients could be they could be governmental, they could be organizations within the government, so they could be policing organizations or even the NHS, or they could be companies such as energy companies or pharmaceutical companies. And our day-to-day role kind of depends on the project. So they engage our consultancy for things like for managing projects for them, for advising them on specific areas where they need kind of niche advice, or for kind of running short-term initiatives for them. So it depends on the project. Currently, I'm working for a policing organization, so doing lots of change management for them, which is essentially pushing through the change of a new technology that they're trying to adopt and making sure all the police officers are happy with adopting that technology. So it's very different to all the projects I've done before. But when you start consulting, I think you realize that transferable skills are just super important. Mm-hmm. So the transferable skills from my previous projects have kind of helped me out with this change management role that I'm currently doing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. How interesting. Okay, so that's fantastic. So it's a very varied role. When you were saying about your experience, I'm just interested actually in your experience just after you left St. George's. At what point did you start applying for roles within financial services?
Yeah, so actually that was halfway through my degree. So I'd started biomed with the intention to go on and do medicine, which I think is probably the intention for most of the people that doing biomed at St. George's. At least it was when I was there. Everyone wanted to go on and do medicine. Halfway through the degree, however, so about kind of January of my second year, I realized that medicine is probably not the career for me, for lots of reasons, a whole host of reasons, but I decided to go on and pursue finance, at least for the short term, just to see what it's like. And I kind of realized that I don't have to commit to it as a as a lifelong career choice, but at least I know that's what I want to do now for the next few years, and that's kind of good enough. Whereas I think when I was 17 and applying for university, it was very much, I need to pick a career that I'm going to do for the rest of my life, and medicine is going to be that career. So I think I kind of realized that halfway through university. I applied for lots of summer internships throughout second year. Was hugely unsuccessful. So I didn't have obviously a lot of experience, applied to loads and loads, didn't really get anywhere. And then throughout all of final year as well, applied to lots of graduate places. So applied to graduate consultancy places, places in financial services, kind of anything that I could see, and in banking as well, anything that I could see online and apply for. Again, not very successful, but I did end up getting a place within the financial services firm as just a normal entry-level role. So it wasn't a graduate program like many people do go on and do, but it was just a normal entry-level role in their products team, and very, very thankful to have gotten that and kind of worked my way up from there.
Okay, fantastic. How interesting. And so I think one of the big themes of the day is resilience. So I'm just kind of jumping on that really. How can you cast your mind back to getting all those rejections? Perhaps, sorry to bring that up, Shriya, but
No,
it's
it's fine.
all been a developing process, and you've made it through despite perhaps having lots of knockbacks, as everybody does, really. It's not easy to get those internships, and it's not easy to get graduate jobs either.
Yeah.
How did you cope with that? What kind of strategies did you employ to get through that period while studying simultaneously as well? What effect did it have on you, and how did you get through it?
I think at the time, so obviously this is quite a few years ago now, at the time, nobody around me was really applying for jobs at all. Everyone was kind of looking to apply to get into medicine, either through the transfer or graduate medicine. And obviously because of the nature of St. George's, no one really kind of applied for those kind of jobs. At least they didn't when I was there. So I didn't have the benefit of looking at what my friends were doing, which I know, speaking to friends from other universities that are kind of larger and have other programs as well, like economics or English or something. I know they've got their friends to kind of build them up, and when they apply and don't get in, it's kind of a process that you kind of all go through together. So I know that at St. George's it's not exactly like that, but what I did was, I think you just have to speak to people. So I think all I can say is just speak to as many people as you can, and just tell them what you want to do. Tell them, maybe I'm thinking of going into this industry. Do you have any knowledge that you could kind of give to me? So I did end up speaking to a lot of people and just getting lots of kind of good tips that way. So hints and tips, contacts. I think when you start applying for jobs, and then when you start kind of entering the working world, you realize how important knowing people and getting contacts is. So I think for what I would say for the students, firstly, definitely utilize your career service. So the fact that you've now got dedicated people to help, you've got people that you can go to, and they can kind of help guide you through that process of thinking, what else could you do? Definitely utilize that. And then secondly, just, the resilience factor, I think also just being open about it. So being open with people that are applying to all these places, not really having any success, trying to find people on LinkedIn. So maybe people that are in graduate jobs that you can see in a company that you might want to work for, messaging them, getting some hints and tips from them. Really just kind of speak to as many people as you can, because you never know who's going to end up having a bit of a lead or a bit of a tip for you that may end up helping.
No, fantastic. Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. That's great advice. LinkedIn's great, actually, isn't it? And you can use the alumni search too, which is helpful.
Yeah.
You can look at people who have been at St. George's and might be working at a company that you're interested in as well. So you can go through different links. Well, that's wonderful. Thanks, Shriya, for that. That's really interesting to hear, because I think that's a situation that lots of people will be finding themselves in. But it's good to know how to get through it, and speaking to people and connecting with people is so important. So coming back to your, well, actually, probably what follows on quite nicely, I've got a question here that says, what sort of experience would be useful in your role at the moment, and which skills did you develop at St. George's which are useful in your role?
Yeah. I think I'd just like to start that question by just saying that we're all just so lucky to live in a country where we can go out and get these jobs with degrees that don't necessarily match up exactly. So I know that in other countries, to go in to work in the bank, you do have to have an economics degree, and it's not that open. But I'd like to say that from my experience, what I've seen is companies here, and that includes banks, that includes financial services companies, as well as just consultancies that operate across lots of different sectors. They're really keen to get graduates with lots of different experience. So they're keen to have a cohort of people that work for them that have not just economics, not just an economics degree, but also a science degree, also an arts degree, an English degree, so that they can kind of broaden their own employee base and their own ways of thinking. So never underestimate the fact that you've got a science degree and you're going into a completely different field, because from what I've found is they really value the analytical aspect of a science degree. So the first promotion that I got back in kind of 2016 was actually because of the fact that I'd had a science degree and a science background, and they were looking for someone to go into a much more analytical kind of role, and they thought that would be a good fit. So I think the analytical skills that you kind of just pick up just by virtue of being there and learning all these different things, they're really, really valuable, and you don't realize it until you start doing these jobs. And a lot of these jobs you actually don't need, and you have to learn on the job. So having an economics degree isn't going to help you, because there's so much that you have to learn on the job that everyone's kind of on the same page on day one. So definitely the analytical skills specifically for a biomed degree, and then secondly, communication. So I think just being at university in general, it really helps with your communication skills, because you're exposed to a whole different host of people that you wouldn't have interacted with at A levels. Your teachers, your professors, careers guidance counselors, all these different types of people, and you kind of have to learn how to adjust your communication skills depending on who you're speaking to, depending on what point you want to get across. If you're part of a society, I know I had kind of different roles in societies, so making sure that people attend your meetings, or people kind of help you and contribute to like specific things that you want to arrange. All of those small things, and just being part of a university, all the things that come with that, just make you have all these excellent communication skills that you don't think about at the time, but later on when you start working, you realize that's actually really helps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a lovely way of putting it, actually. The way that it's transferable skills, isn't it? And I suppose it's the first time when you're independently working. Well, for some people, it's the first time when you're within a university, and it's similar to the workplace in many respects, isn't it? It's exactly what you're trying to achieve when you go into the workplace, and you're trying to work with others, get things done, achieve things as a team. There's a lot of overlap there. Great, thank you, Shriya, for that. So, how did you adjust to moving from studying biomedical science and something scientific to moving into a very different world? Did you feel, I suppose you were kind of answered that in a way, in that everybody's in the same boat, you found when you moved out, but you went into the world of finance. How was that when you first started, having been in science and thinking about going into healthcare? Was that a steep learning curve?
Very steep. I think I've had so many different roles now, but with each role, the learning curve just gets steeper and steeper. The learning curve with the first job after university, I think, is probably one of the steepest that we all face. And I think I'd like to say that you're going to have that even if you end up becoming a doctor or going into a biomedical science related field. Obviously all of my friends are doctors now because I went to St. George's, so all my medic friends are obviously doctors now. They're, I think, either F2 or starting their specialty training. All my biomed friends, they also went on to do medicine, but none of them had it easy as well. None of them went in the first 6 months kind of would say that they really enjoyed their job. I think the key is patience. The key when you start, firstly, when you start working, when you enter the working world, you have to have so much patience with yourself, because the first 6 months are not going to be great. The expectations are different. At university, I think for me, one of the biggest things was I'm expected to be here every day. I have to turn up no matter how I feel, no matter if I'm not feeling great, whatever's going on internally or personally, there's people relying on me. So I have to be there every single day. And for me, that was just such a shift in my mindset, going from education to working. And all of that kind of takes time to get used to. And I think at the beginning, you're not going to like it. Like it's pretty, it's not going to seem like it's a great thing to do, and you're going to miss your friends, you're going to miss your, the uni times and the fun that you had, all this kind of stuff. But you really have to be patient and give it that. You will get over that. You will become excited by the work that you're doing. You'll find meaning in it, and you'll understand why you're there. But all of that takes patience. And then with each role that you change, I think that time probably gets less and less. But it will never go away. So I've just changed roles now and started a new project at the beginning of this year. And it still took me a month to get up to speed. It still took me a month to, and the language is different with every project. Like, so when I started finance, of course, the language was entirely different. It was literally like they were speaking some, talking about ISAs and SIPs. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. What does that even mean? But having it makes it easier to start speaking the language. So then when I started this project this year, it took me a month, still wasn't confident at the beginning, it still was a bit of an uphill climb. But after that kind of month or 2 months, you start to kind of settle in, you start to know the people, you start to be able to say the same things they're saying. And I guess part of it is taking it till you make it, but knowing that you will.
Yes, no, that just broke up a bit, Shriya, but I think you said faking it till you make it. Fake it till you make it, which is a great tip.
Yeah, I know that you will make it. You
I know that
definitely will
you'll
make
make
it.
it. No, great. Okay. No, great. Good advice. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I think when you're in the first role, it's you put it very well again. It's that patience and being kind to yourself and knowing that you won't know everything. And when people are talking in acronyms, you will eventually know them. I had the same when I came to St. George,
Yeah.
so I know exactly what you mean. So okay, great. So in terms of, and again, you've probably covered this to a certain extent when you've been talking about students from biomedical science background changing their direction, or at least from what they expected. But do you have any advice for students wishing to follow a similar career path to you? So something within maybe, I'd say probably more within management consultancy. What advice would you give to students wishing to follow that career path?
You just broke up a bit there, Emma. What was the question
Sorry.
again? Sorry.
What advice would you give to students wishing to follow a similar career path?
Oh, okay. I think my advice would be, firstly, just do it. Just start. So it doesn't, you're never going to find the perfect time to pivot your career path, even if you're at a later stage. But you just have to start. You have to start talking to people, and you have to start getting the knowledge. So don't delay that. Do that as soon as possible. Just make a start. The second thing would be just we've got so many kind of so many tools at our disposal now that the internet's kind of really opened things up in terms of, like we were saying with LinkedIn before. If you have a particular company that in mind that you'd like to work for, Google that company, search on LinkedIn the people that work for them, try and find the younger people that you think you could connect with. Maybe if you start building your network on LinkedIn, you end up seeing that you have mutual connections. See which one of those connections you could kind of you could lean on and ask for help from. So do all of that kind of the networking stuff that doesn't really seem like a lot of fun and no one likes to do. And I remember when I was younger, I used to really just not like doing any of that. But there's so much value in it. There's so much value. And I think it's just understanding that all of these organizations, they may seem huge, they may seem like these big companies, but they're just made of people. So, that they're just made up of people, just that you have to understand that they're all people as well. They have human qualities, they have children, they have partners and all these things, and you just have to find a way to connect with someone. So if you're applying for loads of jobs, if none of that is working out through the online route, maybe see if you can connect with someone on LinkedIn and just ask them, not obviously not asking for a job, but just ask them their opinion. I've been applying for loads of jobs, it hasn't been going well. Do you have any tips? Do you think that I could do anything? Would you mind if I send you my CV for you to have a look at? I think it's just about finding people within the field that you want to work in and getting in touch with those people.
Yeah,
I think that would be my top tip.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. That's really helpful, Shriya. That's great advice. And I think like you mentioned earlier, do come and see, if you are struggling with putting in lots of applications, come and see us as well in the careers service. But I think it's great advice to connect with people on LinkedIn and use the internet there. And I think also sometimes we've been suggesting more and more is for people to look at online courses as well. So to show, if you have been having a bit of a down period because of this pandemic situation, for example, and that recruitment's been on hold in a lot of cases with a lot of organizations, it's about how you use your time and thinking about whether other things that you could do, like little mini courses that show you're particularly interested in an area that perhaps your degree doesn't show that you were particularly interested in that, but it's developed your skills and transferable skills. But what else might be more specific? A short course, a free online course that I can do that might give me an insight and develop my skills a little bit more, or my knowledge. Because they're another opening, and they seem to have really ballooned the number of courses that you can do free is quite.
Yeah, they have, haven't they? And I think that's a really good tip, especially for if you're looking to kind of pivot, finding those courses. And I guess at the time I wasn't too switched on, so I didn't really look into that. But I guess ones can help you find the ones within your price range, or the ones that are free, and definitely utilize that and see which ones would be best for you, and speak to the careers advisors and make sure that they know what you want to do. I think the more people that know what you want to do, the more people are available to help you.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, no, that's great. And do feel, yeah, please do. We're very open at George's as well. But yeah, so I think lastly, Shriya, is there anything that you would like to say that we haven't communicated yet? And I think we've really covered a lot of really important bits and pieces. And I think it's inspiring to hear that you've gone into something totally different, that you've got over applying, which is probably a situation that lots of people are, and I know from people I speak to, this in a similar situation. You've got through that, and now you really are flying with your career, just having got through all of that. And I think it's inspirational to know that there's a happy ending at the end of everyone's labors to get somewhere. You've got what it takes, and not to be demoralized, but to get support along the way. Yeah. So anything else, Shriya, that you'd like to add before I let you go? Sorry, has it come? Sorry.
Sorry, you're just breaking up there. Yeah, I think you're just breaking up. I think it's my internet. I'm not sure. Apologies, but I think I caught the gist of what you're saying.
Yes.
In terms of anything else that I'd like to add, I guess it would be just find out why you want to do what you want to do. Just, I think the why is so important. Everyone now talks about Simon Sinek and his book and all the reasons behind your why. But I think it's about really understanding that, and then also just coming to terms with accepting the fact that you don't want to do something that you had wanted to do in the past. So for me, when I was changing track and understanding that I didn't actually want to do medicine, that's a big change. So it takes some time to accept that. It takes some time to kind of understand that that's okay. But it is okay, and it's okay to change your mind. And it's not a failure. It's only a failure if you then just don't do anything for the next 50 years, which obviously is not going to happen. So yeah, as long as you find something else that you like, as long as you find something else that you're good at, I think that's so important. Understanding what your own skills are and playing to those skills and playing to those strengths, because I know that so many people at George's are there because they want to help people, are there because that's why that's a motivating factor behind so many people that go into healthcare, because they really want to help people and make a contribution and benefit society. But I think it's just about understanding that you can only do that when you're your best self and when you play to your own strengths. So just, I think, taking some time to understand yourself, taking some time to understand why you want to do what you want to do, and then just finding something that you think you would be good at, and understanding that it's not a permanent choice. It's not you committing yourself for the next 50 years to doing this one thing. Just a last concept that I think I'd like to kind of end with is one that I now use in my own head quite a lot. Before, I was very much like, yes, when I was 17, applying for medicine, I was like, yeah, this is going to be my career forever. But now I kind of think of it as a bit of a quilt. It's a patchwork quilt with lots of different patches on it. And right now, one of my patches is that I'm a management consultant. In the past, it was I'm a project manager, or I was a business analyst, or doing all these different things. But they're all just patches, and I can add as many patches as I want to my quilt. It doesn't have to be just one long sheet of one thing. And I think the more patches, the more interesting. So yeah, just do what you want.
Thank you. That's a beautiful image to part on, that nice quilt of lots of different attributes and experiences. Okay, well, Shriya, thank you very much for your contribution today. It's been really enjoyable speaking to you and exciting hearing about what you've got up to. So thank you for your time and thank you for your inspiration as well.
Thanks, Emma. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I hope this is helpful.
Yeah, very, very helpful. Yeah, thank you, Shriya.
Thanks.